Hey there, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show, a show that's dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today is This Week, which is an episode that I do at the beginning of each week that kind of discusses and makes announcements for what's coming up on the channel. And today we've got only 5 episodes coming up this week. I haven't started my new series. That'll start in December, but I've picked out the albums I want to do already, and we'll be doing that via just kind of randomly. I think I'm just going to do it randomly, and I'll explain how I'm going to do it randomly when the time comes to do the first one. The other thing is, as you've noticed, my plants have disappeared here in the corner. They are now on the other side of the room. They weren't getting enough light. They were basically just getting western light, and they needed to get more, so I moved them to the other side of the room here. The green spider especially was suffering. So anyways, I moved them there, and in their place I've put my Stratomatic game board, which for those of you who do not know what that is, it's a baseball game that played with cards. I'm a big, huge fan of that. A lot of my channels on here are that, and I enjoy them quite a bit. Anyways, enough of that. We're here to talk music. So this week on my channel we have 4 other episodes going on. My normal 4 shows now. Well, 3 of them are normal: Monday night, Wednesday night, and Friday night, and a new one which will be coming on Saturday afternoon. Okay, so the first one out of the gate is the Monday night look back at a classic rock album. Actually, I've changed it 3 times. The first time I was going to do one that I thought I was ready for, but I still think I need a little more time with it before I make a decision on doing it or not. The second one, I've already done a couple by the group, and this one seemed like a natural one to do. And then at the last minute, I had a conversation with a sorry, I still got this bit of this cough, with one of my subscribers about a particular album, and I thought, you know what, I've not done this album, and yet it's a really good album, and I think I should do it. So I decided, I picked this one. I listened to it all, and I was remembering how good it was. It was one of the very first albums that I owned on cassette. When I first moved out, I had given all my, as many of you know, I've given all my vinyl stuff to my sister, and so I was left with not really that much, maybe half a dozen cassettes. But there was a place in my area that was a used dealer. He dealt with lots of different stuff, but he had an area for music too, and I didn't have anything to, like, I obviously didn't have a phono player, and this was pre CD era, so the only other thing that was out there really was cassettes. So I started buying up a bunch of cassettes, and one of the first cassettes I bought was this one, which is Peter Gabriel 2. A lot of people, I have kind of a I don't know if they dislike or don't like or misconception about the album and all that, but to me it's a very good album and deserves a lot of attention. I don't think it's one of his top 3 or 4 albums, but it's definitely a very good album, and there's a lot of stuff on here that's really solid. It's more acoustic. There's more piano, more acoustic guitar, little acoustic bits on here than there is on, I think, any of his other albums. But it has some really good melodies and some really good how do you put it, storylines, I guess is the best way to put it. But a lot of the songs are really kind of memorable to me. There's about 7 or 8 of the songs on this album are among my favorite Gabriel songs. Just really kind of acoustically strong album, I think. So anyways, we'll be doing that for our look back at a classic rock album this week on Mondays. Okay, so for our Wednesday favorites, and I do apologize if I cough too much. I'm still not 100% well here. And I decided, since I did a live album on these guys last, well, not a live album, but a live concert on these guys last week, I wanted to continue the trend with them. And I'm going to do my top 10 favorite songs by this band, Canadian rockers, April Wine. This is just a collection of their hits that somebody gave me. I don't really listen to this particular album much, but I do like quite a few songs by them, so I figured, you know what, it's time to do a top 10 from them. Some of them will be radio, and he's a very radio stable group, but there are a few kind of deep cuts that maybe most people may not be familiar. That'll be on my list as well. So that's what I'll be doing for the favorite this week. Top 10 songs, top 10 favorite personal songs for me from April Wine. The last show, or the other show that I've normally done during the week, which is Friday Night Live Experience. This week we're going to be doing something with this band, King Crimson. These are, I've watched quite a few of their concerts now, and I'm always amazed how talented they are. And I think I've now figured out why it took me so long to get into King Crimson, and why it was seemed like forever before I finally bought this first album, is because I've always been told that they're a progressive rock band, and they are. They do have a lot of progressive rock elements in their music, but they also have a lot of jazz fusion and a lot of jazz influence in their music too. And I was not a huge jazz fan growing up. It was a little bit too, I guess it was too evolved for me. It was just too evolved and too, too much depth to it. I wasn't prepared for it at that point in time. I was barely prepared for a lot of the progressive stuff, but I was more interested in rock than I was in jazz. That's probably the reason why Relayer was such a difficult album for me to get in, because it has quite a bit of jazz fusion-y influence in it. And I find that quite the same with King Crimson stuff. So, but we're going to be doing a live concert from them. I will pick one. There's a few good ones out there, but I'm trying to pick the one that I like the most if I can. Anyways, the next thing up on this week is my new Saturday morning show, which kind of replaces my music other than rock. It replaces that in that particular time slot a little bit later, like around 10 a.m. we'll be doing it. But it also is going to replace my live stream, which was album cage matches, which I wasn't really feeling it. I didn't feel that it was achieving anything that I wanted to achieve. So we're going to switch. So this will be a live stream on Saturday mornings at 10 every week, every 10 o'clock every Saturday, unless I announce that I won't be in town, and in which case I won't be here to do it. Maybe I get a sub in here for that day. I don't know. Anyways, so we'll be doing that stream. It'll be about an hour or so in length, from about 10 to maybe 11. It might go a little bit longer if everything's going really well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a rock legend, and we'll be doing, I'll just be going over different things about the legend, his music or their music, what he wrote or what they wrote, their albums, their influences, that kind of stuff. And just for this, my first episode will feature Steve Howe from Yes. Steve Howe from Yes. There he is, right there. Anyways, he was that I chose that album as his first album that he was on with Yes. So influential on that album too. So it will be the first. It's going to be a 3-part series with Steve Howe, because there's so much. He has done so much, and he's such a well-loved musician by me. He's definitely my top favorite musicians of all time. So I'm going to be doing, the first episode will be basically about his career with Yes. Then I'm going to do a second episode on his solo career, because he does have a fairly extensive solo collection. I had a fair number of them in LP. I have none in CD, and it's not because I haven't wanted to. It's just when I'm out there looking, sometimes I get distracted by things and I forget to look for stuff that I had planned to look for, and that's just the case with him. Eventually I will collect most of what he has, because most of what he has is really good. Then the third episode, which will be the final episode, part C, will be on other stuff that he's done, such as Asia. He's been in Asia, so he's done that. He also was one of the founding members of GTR, which also featured Steve Hackett, another great guitar player, and some other musicians as well. I think they only did the one album, if anybody knows. I'm pretty sure it's just the one album. Hackett has not been too, he's a little bit critical of it, but I think it's worth exploring too. And then any other stuff that I may come up with that he was also involved with that I may not be aware of it right at the moment, but will be by the time the show comes, hopefully. I'm a little bit scattery that way. Sometimes I'm very prepared, other times I seem to, for some reason, not be 100% prepared, but I'll try to be the best I can. After all, this is just, and I want to make this clear because I've had a couple of people complain about something, and I don't want to get into it. I don't want to give it life, but this is just a rock talk type show. We're just talking about the stuff we like, and everybody's what people like and what I like. It doesn't mean what I like is better than what you like, or what you like is better than mine. It's just, we're just having conversation about the music we love and trying to give it life. That's what this is about. So sometimes I make mistakes, or I forget things, or perhaps I don't notice something that people think I should notice. And just because I don't get it perfectly doesn't mean that my love of the particular band is anything less than what it is. I don't claim to be the number one fan of any particular band. I don't claim to be ranked up there among the very best of fans for certain bands. I never claim that. There are better fans for every band than I am. That's just the way it is. Some people are more dedicated to it than I am, and I don't have a problem with that. I love the bands, I love the music, and I'm trying to give it some life here, and that's basically all I'm trying to do. So anyways, that's my little spiel for the day. So I'm hoping that you guys can join me on Saturday morning for this new episode. And if people can't, for whatever reason, that's fine. I will still do the episode as if nobody's there, but it's always good to have company, and it's always good to have a discussion about it, because there may be things that I simply don't know. And that's the way it should be. I am not a human encyclopedia, although my dad used to call me the walking encyclopedia of useless information. I think he said it in a kind of affectionate way, but I know it does have a little bit of a negative connotation to it. Anyways, I'm looking forward to doing the episodes this week, all of them, and then I'm going to be very much starting to get together my stuff for my new series that I'm looking forward to doing in December. And just a little bit of a discussion about that now is that there'll be an album each day in December, so 31 albums. All progressive rock, or at least as much progressive rock as, more progressive rock than any other genre. How do I mean by that? I mean the albums themselves, each of them will be a little bit, I'll try to get them to be as progressive as they can. They don't, it's pretty hard. Sometimes some albums have a little bit of other stuff on them that maybe isn't progressive, but is part of the group's repertoire, so you can't cast out everybody like that. But if I'm listening to an album and I find it's not really progressive, then I'll just pick something else and do that instead. So this particular thing will involve some bands that are well known to me, that I've loved and I'll listen to a lot of their stuff, and but for some reason this particular album I haven't. And or there might be a band who I've listened to some of their stuff and may have some of their albums, but I don't have this particular one. Or it might be a band that I've listened to one album, or I know of them and heard some of their stuff, but haven't actually owned or listened to one of their albums. And then there's, of course, going to be the bands who I have never heard of and don't know any of their stuff. So a little bit of everything, just to give it some variety. I'll try to mix it up too. I don't want to put all of the ones that I'm familiar with right at the beginning and then have this big block of stuff I've never listened to before. I'm going to kind of mix it up a bit so that it's not so boring. It needs to be a little bit more flexible. And the other priorities and the other parameters here is that it has to be an album I haven't listened to before. Otherwise, it it has an unfair advantage, and there'd be no purpose to it, because I want to give life to. Basically, the series is going to be progressive rock albums from the 1980s that I have not listened to before. That's basically what it's going to be called. I'll try to only give one album per band, so I'm not going to have like one particular band may have put out 6 or 7 albums in the 1980s, all progressive stuff, but I'm not going to do all 7 of them. I'll just pick one, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the best one either. It might be one that interests me. That's what I'm going to try to do, something that interests me from a band that I have in my parameters I discussed already, and the album has to have come out in the 1980s. So this is about the 1980s. I want to give some attention to progressive rock from the 1980s. Now, if you had asked me this even a year ago, I would have said there was no progressive rock in the 1980s. In my opinion, there was none, because all the progressive bands that I liked had all kind of changed. They changed into pop bands, basically, or synth bands, or whatever they changed into. And so I moved away from progressive rock. But unbeknownst to me, there was still a large amount of progressive rock music out there. Just because it wasn't as dominant in North America doesn't mean it wasn't taking off in the rest of the world. So anyways, somebody gave me the idea, DB, one of my subscribers. He asked me to do a top 10 albums of the progressive rock albums of the 1980s. And then when he said that, I thought, I don't even know 10 progressive rock albums from the 1980s. But upon my research, I found out that I actually do. And there's a lot more out there than I thought. So I thought, you know what, rather than just do that, we'll do this series on it. And then maybe after I've done the series, I'll do a top 10 favorite progressive rock albums from the 1980s. But it was good that he gave me the idea for the series, because I was looking for another one. I didn't want to just keep doing the same thing. I like to do something different every month. And then, maybe I'll go back to the top my favorite albums of a certain year, but I don't want to do it like back to back. It's a little much. So anyways, that's what's going to be coming up in the future, and this is the venue for that to discuss. And hopefully this week's episodes will be of interest to some people. I've had some fair bit of interest on the Peter Gabriel front lately as well, which I didn't think there was as many Gabriel fans out there as there is, but he is a very good musician with a lot of integrity and some really interesting music. And no 2 Gabriel albums is really the same, although some people might say that most of the stuff that came out after So is very world sounding. That might be true, but they're also very good for the most part. So anyways, that's it for this week number 18, which is from November 13th to November 19th. And before I forget, I want to say happy birthday to an incredible woman who I miss. She's gone now, been gone for a long time, but I've always been an admirer of her. One of the most beautiful women ever. That's Grace Kelly. It was her birthday today. She would have been 93. And I think of her often, and she's one of my favorite people to watch on TV. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, as it's much appreciated, and we'll be back again very soon with another episode. So have a good day. Bye.